What's up, everybody? Alex from Columbus here. Welcome back to another video, and welcome to a dollar finds video. Haven't done one of these in a while, and well, I got to put them away, and I have this rule that I can't put anything away until I do a video about it. So, whatever. Yeah, you know, I do a lot of digging around town. Various stores. I don't go thrifting ever. I've never really had any reason or luck doing those sort of things, but got a lot of great record stores here in Columbus, Ohio. And I don't know, it feels like once a month or so, some stores doing some kind of dollar sale or something going on. So a good chunk of records here that I will get to that were all $1. A little bit of rock, a little bit of old school funk, a good amount of jazz, and yeah, let's just dive right on in. So, first one I am showing is off the great CTI label that I've been talking about a lot recently, and it's George Benson, White Rabbit. This was the second record that he released on CTI. Arrangements were by Don Sebesky. This features Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Billy Cobham, and many more. So, yeah, I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it every time I show him. George Benson, man, don't sleep on CTI George Benson. Of course, named after the classic Jefferson Airplane track that's on here. And, yeah, $1. Cannot go wrong with that. This was probably the super find of the trip. The sleeve was in some rough shape, but the record actually played really well. And it's Donald Byrd Stepping Into Tomorrow on Blue Note. I think this came out maybe 73, 74. Kind of in, obviously, that's Donald Byrd goes funk, soul, jazz type route, in that same sort of category as, well, Ethiopian Nights is a classic. I mean, that's my favorite, but I think this is right before Places and Spaces, maybe. But yeah, absolutely a banger. This for $1, because again, the sleeve was messy. I don't give a fuck, man. This is a great record. So yeah, Donald Byrd, Stepping Into Tomorrow. Great stuff. Let's do some old school I'm not going to call it proto-metal, but certainly part of that early 70s hard rock American sound. And this band, great band, they never really blew up and had the success. I think they actually were only around for like 4 or 5 years before breaking up. But it's Blood Rock. This is Blood Rock 2 from 1970. I think this was on Capitol. Yes. Yeah, again, you know, don't hear a ton of people talking about Blood Rock, but certainly an important band in the early 70s here, at least in America. I think they're out of Fort Worth, Texas, maybe. That's the only Blood Rock album I have, so I'm going to need some more. I think I remember seeing Peter over at Music Is a Journey talking about Blood Rock at one point recently. How about this one? This is great stuff, man. There's no such thing as guilty pleasures. This band, this group at this time could not miss for me, and that is early Bee Gees. And this is Horizontal. I think this was 68, maybe? At this time, if all you know from Bee Gees is like disco Bee Gees and all that type of stuff, which is fine to good, no judgment there either. The early Bee Gees stuff is just perfect kind of psychedelic Baroque pop. Just amazing, amazing stuff. These records aren't expensive anyway, but obviously this one is autographed by Barat, so thank you there. But for $1, I love adding this to this. I think this was the second international release, right? So they released their first 2 records, I think, in Australia, and then Bee Gees' first was 67, so this might have been 68 in the second kind of international release. But really great. I love me some early Bee Gees stuff. Let's go to, I'll do a double hitter here. Let me pull this out really quick. Of some old school kind of funky soul, whatever you want to call it. But hey, it's War's greatest hits. Man, I love War. Love the stuff with Eric Burdon. Love kind of the funky stuff. I love the progressive soul stuff. I love kind of everything. And along with that also came Outlaw. This came out in 82, maybe? something like that. So, you know, certainly going a little bit more kind of that commercial funky route with classic awful cover there. And then greatest hits, you kind of see these, this one everywhere. But yeah, always good to add some war to the collection. Cheap war stuff, love it. How about some jazz on the Pacific Jazz label? This is Les McCann and Gerald Wilson Orchestra. This came out in, shoot, let me see. Who knows what year this came out? I'm going to guess early 60s. Yeah, Les McCann on piano, Victor Gaskin on bass, Paul Humphrey on drums, and the entire Gerald Wilson Orchestra. I have a couple of Gerald Wilson Orchestra records. I know, I don't know the exact business side of it, but I know like Blue Note now, they're reissuing some of the Pacific Jazz stuff. So really good. You know, my only issue when it says, or we got like the orchestra, is it just leans a little bit more big bandy for me. And especially for Les McCann, I prefer the more out there type stuff that he was doing in like the early mid 70s. But regardless, good stuff. Speaking of things you just can't go wrong with, I had never seen this record before. This is not this is not like a expensive record by any means. It's probably worth $1, but it's the Dave Brubeck Trio and Gerry Mulligan live at the Berlin Philharmonic. This came out actually, I think in the early 70s, 74 maybe. But again, had not seen this. But kind of cool, you get that Brubeck Trio with Gerry Mulligan doing some work. So yeah, cool stuff. How about some funky jazz fusion from one of the greats? And that is Modern Man from Stanley Clarke. You know, in this era... It's kind of some different stuff. There's some Stanley Clarke records that are just like must-haves, right? Like you think about like School Days is outstanding. His first record, Self-Titles, is amazing. And then there's this kind of like a bit of a consistency issue. You have a record like this that you're like, holy shit, there is some absolute spectacular platinum on there. And then you get like a weird vocal track. You know, it's a consistency thing. But I think we're talking 78 here. So it's a little bit past the fusion heyday. It certainly does lean more into kind of that like disco-y kind of route, but man, what a bassist, what a player. And hey, Stanley Clarke, man. I mean, any Clarke is good Clarke. Touch more jazz here. This is this was a fun one here. It's Porgy and Bess from Oscar Peterson and Joe Pass. This is on Pablo Records. Pablo, I think, is under a reissue sort of campaign with Acoustic Sounds right now, which is cool, you know, support that for sure. I just don't know how collectible these are, right? And they're cheap too, right? I got this for $1, but again, it's not like this is not a $500 record, right? This came out in 1976, and I guess it was recorded in 1976 too. So yeah, kind of latter career-ish for these gents. Porgy and Bess from the great Canadian pianist Oscar Peterson and guitarist Joe Pass. This was a cool kind of Blue Note live compilation. I saw this and I was like, well, this looks fascinating, and it is. Blue Note live at the Roxy. So this is a double LP on Blue Note that features kind of 4 different sets. It starts off with a set from Alphonse Mouzon, which is like amazing, funky jazz fusion goodness, right? And then it goes into a set from Carmen McRae. If you don't know Carmen McRae, she was a jazz vocalist on Blue Note, and so it completely switches sides, goes from like this funky fusion stuff into like female jazz vocalist territory. Then we get a set from the great Ronnie Laws, younger brother of Hubert Laws. And then side 4, we have Earl Klug, who is a guitarist doing kind of a medley of stuff. And then Donald Byrd coming on and doing a couple of different tracks. So it's this weird like live compilation, multiple artists sort of thing happening. But it's cool. I mean, it was a cool listening experience. And I mean, they're just obviously all classics on the Blue Note label. So a really cool find there. I don't know about you all, but it feels like, I don't know, maybe it's because of like the Brian Wilson passing or just like the younger generation, whatever it is. But like, I've seen some prices on Beach Boys stuff that I'm like, what is going on? I did not have this one. And so for $1, I picked it up, and it's Beach Boys' Party. I think this was what, 65 right before, obviously, the kind of everything with Pet Sounds. I like this record. I mean, the whole vibe with this was more of like an acoustic record. It's supposed to represent them all just like hanging out and fucking around in their living room, all that kind of stuff, which is cool. You know, there's like 3 or 4 Beatles covers on here. There's a Dylan cover, a lot of covers. I don't get it. They're good renditions. Don't get me wrong. Like they do them justice. They're good, but it's also like whatever sort of thing. But yeah, Beach Boys Party for the label nerds out there, of course. You can get that Black Rainbow. Really good condition, actually, on that. And again, not an overly expensive record, but for, you know, Beach Boys records are always kind of interesting, right? Because for a while, it just felt like everything was like 50 cents, and then Pet Sounds was $1 million. Now I feel like that's kind of, I don't know, semi-changed a little bit. Maybe not that much, but hey, at any rate. Let's go to jazz vocal again. This is for Scott, DJ Vinyl Vertigo. If you're watching, I'm pretty sure you're a big fan of this artist, and wanted to pick it up. And that is one of these Mercury reissue sort of double LPs that they do. Sarah Vaughan, recorded live. I said this before, in terms of, I don't really like jazz vocal, but when I do, I want female jazz vocal. So Carmen McRae, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday. Like, I want that type of stuff. Not so much like, you know, Johnny Hartman, who's great. No disrespect. Don't like come at me if you're a Johnny Hartman stan. But yeah, now these types of records you will see a lot. They're put up by Mercury and sort of are differ sometimes. Sometimes they're just comps. Sometimes it's like 2 records back to back. Sometimes it's a collection. This is recorded live, all that type of stuff. So these I think came out in the 70s. So yeah, this one actually came out in 1977. But again, Sarah Vaughan, great, beautiful jazz vocalist, very distinctive voice that features Thad Jones, Richard Davis, and Roy Haynes. And I think we just lost both Richard Davis and Roy Haynes, both of them, over the past year and a half or so. But yeah, if you're into vocal jazz, man, Sarah Vaughan, you don't get much better than Sarah Vaughan. Let's move into some 80s, early 80s hard rock. I don't think many people would put this at the top of their list when it comes to this band, but for $1, heck yeah, and it is Making Contact by UFO. They're, I guess at this point, I think Pete Way had just left the band. You still got Chapman playing guitar, doing a great job, and Phil Mogg's voice is just, you know, so distinguishable. You know it is UFO. I think this is a strong record. You know, I always think about these records from the standpoint of like, how much do we compare what we hear just to, you know, if you compare every UFO record to Lights Out, then you're going to be disappointed, right? But I just think here, as a record, as a hard rock record in the early 80s, that sort of leans into just, again, some, you know, of course at the time, you know, we're going to get into hair metal and glam and all that type of stuff, but this is just a good hard rockin' record from 1983. And to find it for $1, that's amazing. I'm all in on that. And let's round it out with some funky, and then one more record. So, Exotic Mysteries from Lonnie Liston Smith. I am a huge fan of Lonnie Liston Smith. If you're into sort of just the great jazzy, funky, fusion soul stuff, man, his like first 5 or 6 records, I think he was on Flying Dutchman and then went to like RCA, or RCA bought out Flying Dutchman. I don't know exactly what it was. But if you can find his records on Flying Dutchman with the Cosmic Echoes, that is some absolutely banging, fiery fusion stuff that is just funky as hell. This is sort of past that. This is on Columbia Records. So again, you have this sort of combination of, it's a consistency problem. There is still some gold on here where you're just like, damn, that is some funky ass Lonnie Smith stuff of the past. And then you have some other stuff where you're like, what are we doing here, Disco Duck, with these jazz vocals? So again, this came out in 78, so it's of the time, but for $1 to add a Lonnie Liston Smith record to the collection, I'm in there like swimwear. And last and not least, this was a surprise pickup for me. This is a beautiful, beautiful record, but it's also a little spacey, not what I was expecting, and I don't know what I was expecting, but the record is called Encounter from Flora Purim. You might know her as the original singer for Return to Forever. And what's interesting is that I don't care that much for those early Return to Forever records when she was singing on them. I love this though. It's less of singing and it's a little bit more, I'm not going to say spoken word, but it's hard to describe. This came out in 1977. The reason I bought this was not because it was a Flora Purim record, but because it was on Milestone. Milestone just was doing, at this time, some amazing stuff with so many great jazz artists. I saw it was on Milestone. I looked at the back and I said, wait a minute. She's playing with Ron Carter. She's playing with George Duke. She's playing with Joe Henderson. She's playing with Alphonso Johnson. Like, I'm like, what a lineup on this record. Like, even if it's not in my bag vocally, the music's going to be outstanding. And the music is outstanding, and it is in my bag vocally. So this was certainly the surprise win of the lot. Absolutely outstanding. So there you go. Wrapped it up. I don't know how many records that was, 15 or so, of just some cheap heat dollar bangers. So more finds videos to come. And yeah, thanks y'all for watching, and let me know what you think. See you on the next one. Cheers.